Welcome, everyone. This is Pat Bailey, Director of Training and Professional Development at Out and Equal Workplace Advocates, and we welcome you to our 2017 Virtual Summit Series featuring some of the best workshops from our 2016 Summit. Today we're going to be looking at strengthening the workplace with Straight Out Allies. This is a broadcast call, so you should be hearing us on your computer, so turn your speakers or your headsets up. If you have problems hearing, go ahead, chat that in, and we can respond to that as well. The chat is located on the left side of your screen, and here's the sign-in. If you have to leave the call for any reason or you have technical problems, this session will be recorded and will be available. We'll send out an email to everyone who's registered after the call with a setup for the downlink and for the slides to listen to the recording. Welcome to 2017. We're getting off to a busy start with today being our first virtual summit. Next week, January 25th, we're going to have our monthly town call. Stepping into 2017 and the LGBTQ workplace equality. We're going to have Janet Boyd from Dow and Jeannie Goldberg from the EEOC. We'll be talking and sharing with them their insights for 2017. And then we continue our virtual summit series starting on January 31st. And so it's a 5-session series, and each one of those are on Tuesday. You'll get a follow-up invitation to each of those as we move through the month. And then next month we have a monthly town call. And our executive forum, if you have executives or emerging executives or millennials who are in the workplace, March 27th to 29th. That link is there on the slide, and you can check on that. It ends on the 29th with our Momentum Leadership Gala here in San Francisco. And then coming up October 9th through 12th, our Workplace Summit in Philadelphia, and those links. We've got a question for you from training we're going to ask, and this is our poll option. So if you can read the prompt, it says Out and Equal University as classroom online, facilitating and consulting for your 2017 needs. What topics are you looking for? You can select more than one. Pick those out. We have about 537 people on the call, so select your results and hit submit, and you'll be able to see what everybody else is looking for this year as you begin to work on that. And it looks like ally programs, which is you're on the right call for that. Unconscious bias are fairly high. Basic LGBT cultural competency. If it's not listed on there, go ahead and click the other, and we'll be able to capture some of those as well. So we've got about half of the audience has responded. So we'll give it just a few more seconds as you come in to respond to those polls, and then we'll move on to our next one. So thank you, everyone. It looks like the two highest, again, are ally programs, which we hope today's webinar will help you with, and unconscious bias is right up there as well. So next question for you is, how do you identify? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, ally, not sure? None of these. Go ahead and feel free to chat in your results from that as well. And we'll see kind of where we are with the audience. All right, we're seeing a great number of allies on this call. Excellent. And I see straight, asexual, gay, ally, non-binary, androphile. So I know when we do our terminology list, it continues and continues. And we've got almost 60% of the audience has responded so far. Looks good. All right. And then leading into our call and getting set up for today, we've got one more question to ask. Does your company or ERG have an ally program in place? And go ahead and select your choice there. Yes, we have a program through the company. It's an ERG-BRG program. You're planning on one within the next year. You're planning on one but not sure when. Don't have a plan for one doesn't apply. And if you're working in smaller companies, an ally program may not be a visible part or other. Go ahead and chat in your numbers and your details. So again, great responding. Thank you, everyone. We're getting good responses on these. We're up to 598 people on the call, and we've got about 2/3 have responded to the poll so far. Got a comment about nothing formal, but general support may start out this next year. So with that, we've got some good basis and understanding of where you are. I'm going to turn it over to this point to Noelle Horne, who is going to be our moderator for this call. So Noelle, go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our call today. we want to really talk about strengthening the workplace with Straight Out Allies. And with that, the purpose of the webinar today is to help create that environment where allies can help support our LGBT initiatives in the workplace, whether it's around our specific workplace, whether it's around the marketplace, how we go to market with our consumers and with our customers, or if it's with our vendors and other individuals that we work with. So with that, we've got a couple of individuals who are just dynamic, and I really appreciate working with them, from Dow, Kellogg, and Whirlpool. And we are all Michigan-based companies, but we also are international, global companies with individuals in our workplaces that are from various backgrounds, various orientations. And I want to introduce them, and I'll ask them to say a few words about themselves. So first I'm going to ask Sue Michalski from Dow to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, this is Sue Michalski. I'm Research and Development Technologist here at Dow. I work on industrial coatings. I've been with Dow for 11 years, and I am the North American lead for our ERG called GLAD.
Great, thanks, and welcome, Sue. Next up, we've got Shirl Gilliam.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a senior packaging engineer here at the Kellogg Company and proud to work for Tony the Tiger. I work in morning foods packaging, specifically with all the cool stuff, what we call our Kids Taste Fun cereals. And I'm the past national co-chair for K-Pride and Allies.
All right, thanks. Welcome, Shirl. Next, we've got Greg Fulmer.
Hi, so I'm a senior engineer in the wash systems for top-load laundry here at Whirlpool Corporation, and I've been at Whirlpool for about 6 years now, and I'm also the community lead for our ERG called Whirlpool Pride.
Thanks, and welcome, Greg. Next up is Wendy Davidson.
Hey, Noel, thank you. Wendy Davidson, I'm president of our U.S. Specialty Channels business, which is one of our U.S. North American business units. We essentially have responsibility for all of the brands and all of the products sold outside of mass merch. So think convenience stores, vending, food service, even our direct-to-consumer business. And I've been with the Kellogg Company about 3 years.
Great. Thanks, Wendy, and welcome. Next, we've got Kathy Greaves.
Hi, thanks, Noel. This is Kathy Greaves. I am a principal nutrition scientist with the U.S. and Global Nutrition Science for the Kellogg Company. I've been with the company now 8.5 years, and I am past and present co-chair for our K-Pride and Allies ERG here at Kellogg.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And finally, we've got Norma Barnes-Uresti. Norma, go right ahead.
I'm Norma Barnes-Uresti. I'm the VP, Chief Counsel, and Chief Ethics Officer for the Kellogg Company. It's been my pleasure to be with the Kellogg Company for 17 years now, and I'm also proud to say that I serve as the executive sponsor for Pride and Allies Group.
Great. Thank you, Norma, and welcome, everyone. And again, I'm Noelle Horne. I work in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion for the Kellogg Company. I've been there for 6 years, and I work across all of the business units, but my primary responsibility is to lead and support all of our employee resource groups. We have 8 of them, K-Pride and Allies being one of them, which is being represented on the call here by several of my colleagues. So I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate here. And for the participants on the webinar, as you can see, we've got a great breadth and depth of leadership across all types of industries and levels within the organization. So hopefully there are some tidbits that you get as we go through the questions and talk about how we can strengthen our workplaces through bringing more allies in. As I go through the discussion, I do have some questions that I will ask of the panelists, so to speak. And then I have a couple of slides that I'm going to go very quickly through that kind of support some of the initiatives that are being presented or executed within the various companies, Dow, Whirlpool, Kellogg. And I think Pat mentioned at the beginning of the call that this webinar is being recorded. So there may be information that we kind of breeze through, but again, you can go back and take a look at that information once the call has been completed. So I want to jump right in and ask the first question of Shirl and then Greg. So how do you define an out ally in the context of your employee resource group? And let me clarify. Some organizations have employee resource groups. They have business resource groups. They have affinity groups. They're all pretty much designed to get at the same objective. So, again, how do you define an out ally in the context of your ERG, and kind of how can that definition be expanded?
Hi, Noel. Shirl. Thanks for giving us this question. I'm going to speak for K-Pride and Allies at Kellogg, and we are an employee resource group that will be migrating towards a business resource group. And how do we define out ally? In several ways. First, we represent all of the LGBTQ and ally community. I'm a lesbian, but I'm also an ally for the entire queer community. I'm an ally for our allies as well. The programs that we put on here at Kellogg we incorporated a little bit about all of those things. We have programs that teach us to learn more about the transgender community so we can be better allies and support them. The main program, however, that we do here at Kellogg is we started several years ago with identifying our out straight allies. We felt it was important to give them a voice so they can put magnets up into their cubicles, they can come to our events, they can ask questions and learn about the LGBT community. We want these people to become our strong advocates so they can go out and they can be proud to say that they're an out straight ally. And we'll talk more about those programs throughout this conversation, but that's pretty much in a quick term of how we define that. We should all be allies to one another, not just at our workplace, but in the community where we live as well.
And just to piggyback off that, just to piggyback off of Sheryl's answer and kind of add some points here too. At Whirlpool, we have our ERG is Whirlpool Pride, and basically an out ally that we understand that there's a large spectrum of allies, and anyone who shows interest in our ERG, we try to wrangle them in and get them on our newsletter, and then we can start communicating the importance of being an ally and what it means to the company, what it means to the greater community. And visibility is key to our ally program. So to be an out ally in our ERG, we strongly recommend that we have the placards you can put up in your cube or your office that state, I'm an out ally because fill in the blank. We also have a buddy badge program where we have the logo of our ERG that can piggyback onto the key card badge, and basically it's out in the open, it's always there. These nonverbal communication tools that really kind of build that inclusive environment without starting a conversation. It can start a conversation, but it doesn't have to. And basically, out allies to us are just those who want to support the LGBTA community and be visible at the same time. So.
Okay, thank you, Shirl and Greg, for your answers there. And I saw in the chat box there was actually a question that came in that said, what's the difference between an employee resource group and a business resource group? And from my role at Kellogg, really they're almost one and the same. When you look at the history of how affinity groups, whether you're African American, Latino, a female, a veteran, LGBT, groups were established within organizations to help focus on the particular affinity, and they started that way, and then they migrated or evolved into being employee resource groups, where the groups would really help employees in an organization get various professional development type opportunities, mentoring, coaching opportunities, and they've over the years have evolved to become business resource groups, where they also help in terms of helping the organization market to the consumer or the customer that they're focused on, whatever the industry may be, or also help focus on vendors and things like that. But when you look at an employee or business resource group, the bottom line is they're both designed to help organizations become stronger and bigger and better and attract the right talent into the organization so that the companies can be successful. So thank you for that question through the chat.
May I add to that?
Yes, go right ahead, Shirl.
If you all came to Orlando and you visited the Kellogg booth, depending on the day you were there, you saw Tony the Tiger, you saw Toucan Sam, who also attended that event. And I think that's kind of a BRG type of a thing. Those brands and more at Kellogg are very supportive of our community, and you'll be seeing more about them in the upcoming year. So we've engaged our business units as well to be strong out allies.
That's great. Thanks, Shirl, for the additional comments. And in terms of the different organizations, I mentioned at the beginning that Kellogg, Dow, Whirlpool, we are all Michigan-based companies, and we work together to help build our organization and to, so to speak, not recreate the wheel, but to build our organizations off of the strengths that each one is bringing. Whirlpool, as an example, has a specific vision and mission for their LGBT employee resource group, and so does Whirlpool and Dow. And I pulled up a slide to show you an example of that. So if you are a participant on the call and you're wondering how can we message or how can we take that information to our executives, to our managers, to employees in the organization, it's always great to have a mission and vision that's tied to the mission and vision of the company as well. When I mentioned the marketplace, I put up on the screen where you can see some examples of advertising that Whirlpool has been very successful in targeting the LGBT community. And those are examples of the outcome of getting out allies involved with the initiatives and the mission within the LGBT community, because it's all about driving business results. So next I want to bring Wendy into the conversation. And Wendy, if you're ready, as a straight out ally, what advice and or personal stories can you share to help organizations and participants on the call create better engaged and more productive allies?
Thank you, Noelle. I appreciate that. Well, I am a big believer that business outcomes are a result of the actions that people take, and those actions are based on their beliefs, and their beliefs are created because of their experiences. I think my job as a leader is to make sure that I'm providing experiences that help shape people's beliefs so that their actions will then generate the business results. I can't just focus on those results. And I think early on in my career, I got a chance to feel a bit of that. And I talked about this in Orlando that, for me, it was working in the meat industry early on in my career and coming back to work after having my first child. And the perceptions that the people around me had were very much around my life. It was, I would be distracted. I wasn't going to be focused on work. My commitment was now to my family and it wasn't to my job. And so I had to essentially separate my personal life from my professional life in order for the people I worked with to take me seriously at the office. In my mind, I've been able to translate that into the work I have with the teams that I have today. I need my teams to be able to bring their full self to work. I need them to be able to talk about what they do on the weekend, and I need them to be able to share that, because if they're able to share that, they're comfortable, and when they're comfortable, they bring their best thinking and their most creative ideas to driving the business results. And this became very personal for my family. My brother-in-law actually came out a year ago after being very distant from the family for about 15 years. So my husband and I lost touch with him. My children lost touch with their uncle. And we now realize in retrospect a lot of it was he didn't feel comfortable being able to share a part of his life that was so important with the rest of his family. Because on the outside he would look at us and say, okay, married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, a cat, and a fish. And from that perspective, I wouldn't be able to understand or relate or to care about his life, which was quite the contrary. But I realized that because my perception was creating a view for him, I wasn't allowing him to be able to be himself. So I have to be intentional with the people in my life about my openness. I have to be intentional at the workplace, so that my team can bring their whole selves to the office as well. And part of that doesn't just mean being open to hearing their stories. It means asking. It means openly asking, what'd you do this weekend? It means asking about their partner. It means when there are events here in the office with K-Pride and Allies, or it means if there are events in Chicago that are important to the community, that I am visible there, not just in support of my team to be there, but that I am also visible at those events. And I had a really good colleague, a mentor years ago, who I think said something really powerful. There's doing what's right, and then there's doing what works. And I would tell you that from my perspective, doing what's right is doing what works, because it allows your team to be fully creative and fully engaged. And I think it allows the consumer to truly be doing business with a company that doesn't just get it, but lives it every day.
That's just a great answer, Wendy. And for the participants on the call, I mentioned that we are Michigan-based companies, Whirlpool, Dow, Kellogg. But Wendy and myself, we actually work out of the Chicagoland area. And I think what's a positive and what's a great way to engage allies within your organizations is to be sure to reach outside of your specific home base. So if you're a Midwest, or if you're an East Coast or West Coast-based organizations, be sure to not forget that there are allies and individuals across your entire organization, and you want to be able to reach out to them with specific asks or specific goals in order to build your ally base. So Wendy, as the president of our specialty channels organization, is very influential in the organization. She's got a great viewpoint and a great understanding of the initiatives for the organization, and she's also been a great champion for us. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to move on.
I want to add one thing to that, Noel, and really as, I guess, advice, because it looked like from the earlier questions, there's quite a few people who are looking for the building of ally networks in your companies, not just programs but networks. I would really encourage you to engage with other like organizations in your region. If you're in a region or if your headquarters are in a particular location, engage with those other organizations so that you can create really robust networks for your teams, but also the opportunity to have shared learning. No different than the experience at Out and Equal in Orlando. Create a bit of that Out and Equal in the community where you work, and pooling together a couple of companies similar to what we've done on this call to share best practices, but also to engage our teams together is important. as a leader, I really believe that it's not just having a seat at the table, but when you have a seat at the table, you have to make things better, not just for yourself at the table, but for the people around. And the best way I think we can do that is leveraging each other's strengths.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for the additional comments. And you make a great point about building that network. And I think that's why today's webinar, partnering with Out and Equal and seeing the 3 companies who have done a great job partnering with one another to build their initiatives is an example of your comments there. So thank you very much. All right, I want to move on to our next question and bring Norma into the conversation. Norma is the Chief Counsel at Kellogg Company, and I want to ask you, Norma, with changes in legislation constantly taking place, how do allies help support Kellogg and or any organization in the community, particularly as it relates to government affairs?
Well, I think the biggest way to help is really just twofold. And first, that's actually take the time to learn about the political and legislative issues that are affecting the LGBTQ community. So, the best way to be informed is to know about what the issues are that are actually impacting your coworkers or your friends and your family. And there are quite a few of them. I think the number one thing is just basic fairness in the workplace. As of today, there are 29 states that have no law that would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. And of those states that do have a law prohibiting discrimination, only 5 of those states actually protect gender identity. So the ability to work and be guaranteed a job that's free of discrimination, I think, is a big issue for most people in the country. Not for the Kellogg Company, so I will throw that out there, as many, I think, companies who are very interested in that issue, and that's why, because they want to make sure that the places where their employees live, work, and play, that they can do that free of discrimination. So I think the fact that there is not a federal anti-discrimination law and the fact that so many states don't have one either is a big issue. I think RFRAs are also a big issue. And RFRAs can permit individuals to deny certain services. So, for example, there was just a decision that happened actually at the very end of 2016 where a U.S. district judge in Texas entered a ruling that said that doctors can refuse to treat transgender patients because of religious freedoms issues. So that, I think, is also a big issue for people in the communities in which they may be working, to be able to access services the same as everyone else without fear of discrimination. So being an active part of an ERG or that might be doing some work in that area, or joining an organization in the community, I think is also helpful. I'm sorry, it sounded like there was a question? So as I said, once you've got the information, then I think the big thing is to get involved. And your involvement can be anywhere from, if your company is advocating on an issue, then being supportive of that. If they're not, then perhaps joining a local organization in your community, whether that is the HRC or whether that is a more local community, and playing an active role in that, to even just what you might do as a private individual as well, such as writing a letter to your legislator or being aware of what issues are up for voting and then voting on them. So I think that having that kind of active involvement can make a big difference.
Yeah, Norma, can you maybe give the participants an example? Like there was legislation, and there were actually activities that were taking place in the Portage, Kalamazoo area. Can you talk about how Kellogg and our ERG and our allies were supportive of different initiatives that were going on there?
Yeah, so as an example, you mentioned Portage, Michigan. So that is one of the communities that's close to our headquarters offices. So it's a community where many of our employees live, work, and play. And they were considering a local ordinance to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. And so a number of members of the ERG, myself, and also some senior leaders from the Kellogg Company went in person to testify to the commissioners about what we thought was the importance of that issue and the impact it can have on our ability to recruit or retain employees if the communities in which they live, work, and play aren't inclusive communities. And our CEO, in fact, also wrote a letter that we read out loud about the importance of ensuring that all employees are equally protected. And we found that that I think was very meaningful to the commissioners, and I'm very proud to say that they passed that legislation. And so that ordinance is now in effect.
That's awesome. So thank you for sharing the additional details. I think what's critical here in what you're sharing is that we really need to be knowledgeable in terms of what's going on in our communities and the different legislation that's going on, and also bringing our allies into play to be sure that our companies can help have a voice so that if there are changes that need to take place, that we can help them happen. Because to your point, you mentioned where we live, work, and play, and it's not just about the workplace. It's also about our lives and our activities outside of work that are very important. So thank you, Norma.
Yes, and think that having our allies there was very helpful in that too, having that additional support.
Yes, thank you. All right, so Sue from Dow, let's bring you in because Dow has some great programs around allies. So I want you to help us understand how Dow helps our allies go from being junior allies to moderate allies to the ultimate, which is champion allies. So you've got 3 levels of allies within your organization. So can you talk about best practices and also explain the difference between the 3 allies?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people, and the question was on the phone, I'm an ally, they ask, but now what? So one of the first things that people, when they become an ally, it's getting that sticker on the door. And I noticed that one of the questions was, well, if I don't have a sticker, does that mean I'm not an ally? And one of my stories that I tell, and you probably heard this at Out and Equal, is when I took over the leadership role in GLAD here at Dow, one of the things you have to do is tell your leader, your boss, that you're going to be doing this because, you have to have time to organize meetings and stuff like that. So I outed myself to my boss, who I thought was my friend, and he went to school with my sister, so he's known my family forever. And so that was like on a Thursday or Friday, but on Monday or Tuesday, he comes down to the lab and he tells me that I'll no longer be working for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought he was an ally. I thought this would be a non-issue to him. So, the sticker just means that you can go and be your whole self to that person. It doesn't mean that that ally is necessarily a champion ally, meaning he doesn't go to the pride events, he doesn't do all that, but he is an open door and you can be your whole self with him at work, is the type of thing. When Dow started GLAD, it was 16 years ago, and one of their first initiatives, their goal was to have 75% of the participants to be allies. So this year we're at 3,000 members of GLAD, and about 82% of the people are allies. So when we're talking about allies, like I said, a champion ally is somebody that's going to advocate for you. Pat mentioned that on the next call, Janet Boyd is going to be talking about legislation. She's an ally, and she's been part of GLAD for many years. Our communication leader, she's an ally, and also our executive sponsor, he's an ally, and so we need those people on our group to be allies. So when somebody, to be an ally, you could start out just having that sticker, and then they can start asking you questions. There's open doors and stuff. So once they start asking questions and how can I be involved, and if it's just manning a booth or something like that, that's your medium junior ally. And then when they start doing things like advocating for you, those are our champion allies. And so all the LGBT members know that they've got somebody that it's okay to be their whole self with. And this little checkbox here, this is kind of one of our larger sites in Indiana has come up with this, and you can go through, and if people really want to know what to do, how can I be a better ally, this chart right here are some of the things that you can do. I mean, you can make it into a program so that you can educate and have your members evolve to be champions, to be advocates for the LGBT community.
Thanks, Sue. I put up on the screen the worksheet that you were referencing on the different levels of allies and how they can become a better champion and out ally for the LGBT community. So I think that's a great resource that you have and that you've implemented. All right, let's bring Kathy into the conversation. Kathy, what challenges do people face coming out as a straight ally, and how do you create the safe space to help them feel welcome?
Thanks, Noel. This is a great question for two reasons. One, because I think maybe a majority of the folks on the phone are allies, and we do have a question that came in asking what recommendations we might have to help straight allies or potential allies overcome concerns they might have with others possibly thinking that they are LGBTQ because they support the community, which is an interesting question and heartfelt and really based in fear. I know that if you think about the ERGs that we have at Kellogg, we have CARG, OLA, WALK, Capable, K-Merge, KVETS, Young Professionals. Of all of those, there aren't many people who would be concerned about being considered a vet or a young professional or an African American if they were allies to those particular ERGs. But with K-Pride, with being an ally to the LGBTQ community, there's, I think, a fear, a sense that the person might be discriminated against because they're thought to be part of the LGBTQ community as opposed to being an ally, which is I think that might be considered a little bit of internal homophobia. So we heard about workplace issues with Sue and her coming out to her boss, but it exists. It exists today. Many of us are discriminated against when we do come out, and I would say part of that overcoming that fear is being educated. And I'll give you an example. I had an individual who participated in in our Pride festivities one weekend, And after it was all over, I went back and publicly appreciated all of those individuals who were involved with the Pride festivities. And afterwards, she came up to me and she said, some of us there were allies. We're not part of the LGBTQ community. Could you please let people know that, because I don't want them to know that I'm actually a lesbian. I want them to know that I'm an ally that's supporting the LGBT community. And the next week I did that. And I think coming out as an ally might be for you to verbally come out as an ally if you need to put ally paraphernalia in your cubicle or office to make you more comfortable. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is, is to work hard to overcome that fear. And I think as part of the LGBTQ community myself, my responsibility is to help you to overcome that fear and to help you to walk as an ally and to one day become an ally who doesn't necessarily have to be identified as straight. But it really is some, in my opinion, self-reflection to really understand what it is about being identified as part of the LGBT community that causes that consternation or causes that concern.
Kathy, I have just something to add too. This is Greg again. I think a good first step that we do here at Whirlpool, we offer the Straight for Equality in the Workplace. It's a great training. I'll give a plug to PFLAG National. They come every year and they put on multiple sessions for our employees here at the corporate offices in Michigan, and we also have started doing them at the manufacturing plants across the country. But it's in the title of the class. It's Straight for Equality, and it's easy for people, or seems easier for people to want to come to this and not be maybe afraid of being outed before they're ready to come out as a straight ally. And then I think it's kind of that it plants that seed, because it does a great job of walking you through this journey of a straight ally, and the first time you take the class you may not want to talk about it after you leave the class, and then maybe you come back the next year and you get a little more courage, or throughout the year you've been getting more involved with your ERG, and it just, when it feels right, it makes sense, and you do come out as an ally. But I think that's one tool that we've used here at Whirlpool that's been really successful for our ally program.
This is Shirl. Can I add on to that, Noel?
Yes,
we've done something. We've done something similar here at the Kellogg Company. We've used PFLAG early on, and then we migrated to using some of the local universities to come in and do some of our training. And we've used Michigan State's LGBT Resource Center and their director to come here. And we started with basic training, where we invite anyone to come there, as well as our straight allies, to learn about the LGBTQ community, to learn about just the basic terms, to get familiar, to be in a place where you can ask questions, because no question is a stupid question. We've done that here at the Kellogg Company, and we've grown you up. This fall, we even had a training with the president of Kellogg North America and his staff. And he pretty much told his staff that they must attend this training. And it was very intimate setting. And we had his entire staff there in the room with the director of MSU's LGBT Resource Center, and we had some of her students there as well that covered the spectrum of the LGBTQ community. And our executives were in quite a safe space where they can ask these students questions and learn more about it. And it's really great when you're out there in your workplace and individuals come up to you and they say, "Thank you so much for having this training. It made me feel more comfortable." We had one individual that came up in December to us and said, "Hey, I kind of knew my daughter was a lesbian, but I was waiting for her to come to me. But she, with coming to our training, became so comfortable that she can go back home and make her home more comfortable so her daughter could feel good to come out to her, probably a lot earlier than what she would have. So these trainings are awesome, and I highly recommend that to you guys to bring them into your workplace as well.
If I can also, thanks, Shirl. If I can also add another comment, and it's based on the questions we've been getting in. Many of the questions are, how do I get out ally paraphernalia or signs or whatever it is in order to identify myself as a straight ally. I'm guessing that those might be coming from people in companies where you might not have an LGBTQ ERG. My recommendation would be PFLAG or maybe some of your local universities, because I can promise you that student organizations on campus have signs and stickers and magnets available that would identify an individual as an out straight ally. So I would say PFLAG, maybe get on the internet or find a PFLAG group in your area, or visit the local Pride office at some of the university that might be near you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy, and for all of the responses there. I think that question was one of the questions when we were in Orlando that had resonated with the attendees the most, and I think just based on the number of responses, understanding that creating that safe space for allies and for the LGBT employees is one of the areas that's very important and will help drive your initiative even further. In terms of moving the conversation on, I want to bring two of our executives in, Wendy and Norma, and talk from a high level about how have you all seen ally support of the LGBT initiatives help drive and deliver business results? Because we, at the end of the day, all of us are employees or leaders at different organizations, and the success of our companies are very important. So how can our LGBT initiatives drive business results? And on top of that, how can allies help drive those initiatives? So Wendy, I'll ask you to start off.
Yeah, thank you, Noelle. I would say there's a business result that's internal and there's a business result that's external. Internally, and I spoke to this a little bit earlier, part of it is really engaging and getting full engagement out of your team. When people feel like there is a whole part of their life that can't be shared, you're asking someone to really inhibit parts of their creativity, their open thinking. They're spending a lot of time trying to be someone at the office that isn't truly who they are. And by extension, you're not going to get both full engagement and really the power of the team. And so I think there's an internal challenge that's key. Externally, the business results are clear. There is, and it's not just with the LGBT community, it's also with the broader consumer base. There is a lot of support for companies that are open and engaging to a fully inclusive brand. And I will tell you one of the reasons why I joined the Kellogg Company. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that as a company, we stand up for love is love, regardless of who's at the table. And I think there's a lot of power in that. We don't do that because it's politically correct. We do that because it's just right. It's right for our consumers, it's right for our team members, and it's right for our brands.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
And we've often seen something that started as internal support getting incredible external recognition, and that has helped drive our business results as well. So as Wendy has mentioned, engagement's an important thing. That's helped us with recruitment and retention. People respond very positively to companies that believe that they have the right values of diversity and inclusivity. And I'll give you an example. Our ERG wanted to do something for Spirit Day in recognition of anti-bullying, and one of our marketing allies helped us come up with an idea of how some of our brands might go purple for the day. And we got terrific business support from people like Wendy Davidson and other senior executives for those brands to go purple. And I have to tell you, that not only meant a tremendous amount to members of the community here internally, but it also went very viral outside as well, and we got tremendous visibility from our brands during Spirit Day, and I think there was a lot of positive reaction to it. And something like that helps drive business results, no doubt.
Yeah, and I would add one thing too, Noel, and we mentioned this a bit when we were in Orlando. I do think that especially in today's day and age with social media, the consumer can see through advertising gimmicks, and they can see through to who a company really is. They can also see through to who a business leader is. So I would, for folks who are on this call, but also for your companies, it's incredibly important that that authenticity not start and stop where your brand communicates in the marketplace. It's also in how your senior leaders talk about these things in their own social media. It's about where they show up and how they show up. It's how they communicate to the team is incredibly important. So just as we were kind of mentioning earlier, this opportunity for straight out allies to come out, it's also incredibly important to be transparent and to be authentic as leaders, as brands, as companies. So where you are doing something that is bold, talk about it. Where you aren't fully transparent, be very careful that you're not talking one thing and there's something hidden behind that isn't truly authentic in how people show up.
That's excellent. I really love the piece about being authentic, because your employees, your customers, your consumers, they can tell when you're not being authentic or it's not coming from the heart. So I appreciate those comments there.
No, can I share two specific examples of our executives walking the walk?
Absolutely, Shirl.
Real quickly, on Marriage Equality Day, on June 30th, Kellogg had a party to celebrate marriage equality in 2015. And our CEO came to our party. He was on vacation, and he came in from his vacation to our party, as well as our vice chair also came to our party on that day. And their time is quite valuable, and they showed up. This summer, the city of Battle Creek, which is quite small, in July had its first Pride Parade. And the local Battle Creek Pride had went to the city council, and they negotiated to have this parade. And at the parade, Norma was the grand marshal, and Tony the Tiger and Toucan Sam were there also. But the president of Kellogg North America just showed up, walking through the crowd, and he stayed for the whole thing. And that was really huge to show the community that here it is, our president of Kellogg North America is out there at a Pride Parade, the first one ever in this little town.
Yeah, those are great examples, and the presence of having executives participate and being involved and engaged is really important to move the initiative. So I see we're coming up on time, so I want to ask one more question. And Shirl, I think I want to have you kind of kick off that question, but what advice can you share to have better engaged, proactive allies, and how do you address individuals who show lack of support? And so that question is to both Shirl and to Sue.
The first thing I wanted to share was we as leaders of our ERGs or BRGs, we need to be accessible and visible. We need to make people feel comfortable so they can pull you into an enclave or pull you into a private space and ask you personal questions. They need to feel safe to ask you questions. We've got to let people know that they're safe. And that's the beginning, the start of getting someone engaged. And then we bring them to some of our events so they can get to ask more people questions. And the tough one is, how do you address individuals who show a lack of support? Now that's really tough, because first you need to understand why is it that they have a lack of support. What's holding them back? Is it something? Is it religious based? Is it something you got to kind of get to that. It could be work related. Maybe they don't feel comfortable coming out because they think their supervisor doesn't want them to go to these extracurricular activities. But as we're walking the hallways, we need to be accessible to answer these questions and let people know it's okay, so we can get to the root of why they're not coming out and help them to become more proactive, both at work and in their community. I'm going to pass it over to Sue to finish it.
I think here at Dow, we've got support from the top up. And I think that when you have executive leadership telling you that it's the right thing to do and it makes business sense, and we have a webinar about the business case for being supportive. But, you know, you do run into lack of support until they hear your personal stories or you hear theirs. I had a very Catholic Marine come to my office, close my door, and I'm going, oh no, I'm in trouble. And his daughter just came out to him, and he had no idea what to do. So immediately he's got to catch up to everything. You know, he would have never been an ally until something outside of work, you know, brought him to that point. And so we're an ally not only to the allies out there, but, you know, the 3 degrees of separation, everybody knows somebody. So I think that's where, you know, the support, you might not see it. And I know that we live in a town that's very conservative. So, you know, if they can feel that they can bring their whole self here at work, at least we know that we're helping them here.
Great, thank you. Well, I know we're coming up on time, and we could have probably had a 5-hour webinar today, but I'll ask the panelists, first I'll thank you for your time and sharing your insights. Any closing comments or remarks you want to make before I turn it back over to Pat? And
this is Shirl, and my closing comments are we're now into 2017, and this year is the year we need to have an outside voice. So don't be quiet as you're walking around, whether at your workplace or in your community. Have a positive outside voice.
And if I could add one more, this is Kathy. It's with that outside voice to try to step beyond your fear. And you know, there's going to be some challenges in the next few years, and if each of us find one fear to walk beyond, we're going to find that we're in good company. So I would just say keep walking through the fear.
Yeah, and Noelle, I would add this, and a huge credit to Shirl and the team for scheduling the session that brought in the students from Western Michigan and met with our North American leadership team, because what was great in that is that they created a safe space for us to ask lots of questions. And I would encourage you to create an opportunity for, even if it's someone one-on-one, as Sue was saying, someone who can, behind closed doors, ask you the questions that they're uncomfortable asking, because asking the question means that they're seeking to learn and to understand. At the same time, encourage your leaders to feel comfortable asking some of those questions, because the more they know, the easier it is for them to use not only the right language, but to create the right environment for people to truly be their most authentic self at the office.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. So I'm going to turn it back over to Pat, and thank you, everyone, for joining our call today. Hopefully we were able to share some tidbits that will help you move your Ally program in your organizations further. So thank you.
Noel, thank you, and all the panelists. You did an amazing job. We have about 23 questions, so we know we're not going to get through all of them. But what we do is we'll go ahead and we'll send those to the panelists, ask them for some inputs, put that together in a blog, and release that as well. If you missed any part of this presentation, it will also be available as a recording that we'll send out in a link to you, as well as the slides. So I know a lot of folks wanted to look at some of those. This is just a sample of the kind of workshops that go on at the Out and Equal Summit, and we hope that this will help you think about coming to Philadelphia or maybe bringing up the discussion in your workplace on that. We have a lot more going on, though, before we get there. There will be a short survey as you exit the call. Our next town call, again, will be next week on the 25th, Thursday, talking about what's next, stepping into 2017 and LGBTQ workplace equality. And then our next virtual summit will be engaging middle managers in driving LGBT equality, another one of our top workshops from the summit. So again, we thank you all for joining us today. We thank the presenters, and we'll see you next week.